Imagine a future where a single decision could cut off Russia's main lifeline to Europe and reshape the entire geopolitical landscape. What if the very rails that once carried the Russian Empire's power are now about to be dismantled forever? This isn't just about transportation, it's about a strategic move that threatens to silence Moscow's reach into Europe. In recent months, the Baltic nations have made a bold, united stance. Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania have publicly committed to a plan that could see the removal of the Soviet-era railway tracks connecting Russia and Belarus to the Baltic ports. According to sources in neighboring Belarus and Ukraine, this isn't hypothetical, it's a concrete strategy. The classic symbol of Russian influence across Europe, the railway bridge spanning the Baltics, faces imminent disappearance. At first glance, the recent talks held in Riga, Latvia, appeared as routine diplomatic meetings, leaders smiling, exchanging pleasantries over coffee. Yet behind closed doors, heated discussions unfolded about something far more explosive, a plan to physically sever Moscow's connection to Europe. The goal isn't just legal sanctions or economic embargoes, it's an all-out attempt to dismantle Vladimir Putin's dream of a Russian world. The plan involves removing the wide-gauge railway lines, remnants of the Soviet Union, that link Moscow directly to the Baltic ports. This is no ordinary logistics shift. For Russia, it's a potential military and economic catastrophe. Those rails aren't just transportation routes, they are veins of influence, control, and power. Once severed, the Kremlin's military might would face unprecedented logistical barriers. Tanks and troops aiming to reach the borders of the EU could find their supply lines cut off, along with vital oil exports reaching Western markets. For Belarusian leader Alexander Lukashenko, this move spells doom. Without these rails, Belarus risks becoming a landlocked, economically fragile state, unable to export its key commodities like potash or petroleum. The country's vital industries, heavily dependent on rail exports to ports in Lithuania and Latvia, could grind to a halt. Factories might close, workers could be laid off, and the economy could collapse, a final blow to Lukashenko's grip on power. Meanwhile, Kaliningrad, Russia's strategic enclave nestled between Poland and Lithuania, faces an even darker future. Cutting the railway lines at Belarus border would isolate this region, turning it into a closed-off island in the Baltic Sea. Without railway access, Kaliningrad would rely solely on sea and air transport, a costly, unreliable alternative. The Russian military would lose a crucial supply route, making Kaliningrad more vulnerable to NATO's surveillance and strikes. The region's population might feel cut off not just physically but psychologically, a ghost city disconnected from the motherland, with supplies dwindling and morale plummeting. The strategic threat is clear. As Riga's leaders gather to outline their plan, they understand the significance. They are not just dismantling rails, they are rewriting the map of influence, striking a blow to Moscow's imperial ambitions. The question is, will this move provoke retaliation, or will it serve as a decisive turn in the ongoing struggle for dominance? What's unfolding here is more than a railway dispute, it's a high-stakes game of geopolitical chess. This isn't just about logistics. It's about power, control, and the future of Europe's security. The tracks are about to be erased, but the consequences? They will ripple across continents, rewriting the very fabric of Eastern Europe's strategic landscape. Imagine a world where entire regions could suddenly become isolated, where the vital arteries of commerce and military movement vanish overnight. This isn't fiction. It's a real possibility shaping the future of Eastern Europe. The Baltic states are orchestrating a move so bold, so decisive, it could sever Russia and Belarus from their historical lifelines. Can you feel the tension? It's as if the fabric of regional power is about to unravel. It all began in Riga, where leaders from Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania gathered at Riga Castle on December 4. The room buzzed with discussions not just about security or energy but about a daring plan, one that could shape the fate of the entire region. These nations debated removing the railway lines that connect Moscow and Minsk to Europe. Estonian President Alar Karis spoke softly but with steely resolve, "If we do this, we'll do it together." His call for coordinated action sent ripples through diplomatic circles. Was this just about infrastructure? Or something much bigger? The decision was now in the hands of ministers for detailed planning. Meanwhile, Lithuanian President Gitanas Nausėda emphasized the need for a unified eastern defense. He hinted at new alliances, suggesting that this step wasn't just about railways but about fortifying their future by involving the European Union. Yet, Latvian President Edgars Rinkēvičs sounded the alarm. This isn't just about tracks. It's about restricting freedom of movement, about control. His words echoed a chilling truth: this move could reshape the entire geopolitical map. According to Ukrainian sources, Latvia plans to evaluate the dismantling by the end of 2025, with a final call arriving early the following year. But the ground beneath these plans is already shifting. In secret corners of the region, sabotage operations are becoming more frequent. Ukrainian intelligence-affiliated groups have already carried out damaging attacks on railway lines in Rostov and Leningrad. These acts of sabotage expose just how fragile the existing supply routes are. The Baltic states, undeterred, now prepare to strike back, but not with explosives. They plan to tear out these vital links with construction machinery and official decrees, transforming the regional landscape not with violence but with strategic precision. The tremors of this decision are felt far beyond Riga's historic halls, reaching into the shadowy corridors of Minsk and Moscow. What happens when these rails disappear? And what does it mean for the future of power in these tense borders? The game is changing. The question is, will anyone survive the fallout? The dismantling of the Baltic railway lines is more than just a logistical shift, it signals the potential unraveling of entire economies. For Belarus, a landlocked nation, railroads are vital. Their economy heavily relies on exporting potash fertilizer and oil products through ports in Lithuania and Latvia. These routes are their economic lifeline. Now, Baltic leaders are preparing to sever that vital connection. What happens when the tracks are gone? Chaos at borders, backed up cargo, and factories grinding to a halt. Thousands of tons of potash may pile up, stuck at the border, trapped in a deadly stalemate. Moving these huge shipments by road? An economic catastrophe, costs skyrocket, competitiveness collapses, profits evaporate. And the options are limited. The Kremlin suggests redirecting Belarusian exports to Russian ports in St. Petersburg, but those ports are already overwhelmed. Capacity is tight, and the longer distances eat into profits. This isn't just an inconvenience, it threatens to crush Belarusian industry entirely. When warehouses overflow and goods can't move, factories face shutdown, workers face unemployment, and the economy begins to crumble. This is the nightmare President Lukashenko fears most. His country teeters on the brink of economic ruin. But there's a darker threat hiding in plain sight. What if these railways vanish? One of Russia's strategic outposts in Europe, Kaliningrad, could become an island cut off from its motherland. A region practically imprisoned by geography itself, dependent on rail transit through Lithuania. If those tracks are dismantled, Kaliningrad's supply routes are severed. Imagine the scene: ships in the Baltic Sea, the only remaining links to the outside world. Every ton of cargo now costs multiple times more to ship than by rail. Food, fuel, military supplies each must now cross sea or air, draining billions of rubles. The region, once a military outpost, could turn into a strategic dead end. How long can Kaliningrad sustain such isolation? How will Moscow respond as its access to Europe erodes? The stakes are rising, the very fabric of regional power hangs in the balance. And yet, despite this looming crisis, some ask, is there a way out? The new rail project connecting Tallinn to Warsaw promises a future of faster, more reliable connections. But will it be enough? Or is the removal of the old tracks the first step toward a complete geopolitical shutdown? As the tension builds, one question remains: could this be the final move that finally isolates Russia in its own shadow? The Baltic region's bold move to dismantle the Russian and Belarusian railway connections is more than a logistical shift, it's a strategic disaster for Moscow's ambitions. But the real nightmare unfolds further south, where the tiny enclave of Kaliningrad hangs in the balance. If Lithuania removes the border rails, this isolated outpost could become an impossibly vulnerable island, cut off from Russia's mainland in a sea of NATO dominance. Imagine the quiet hum of cargo ships replacing the thunder of trains. Every heavy load, military supplies, missiles, troops, would now depend on the uncertain, costly flow of ships and planes. The once robust train tracks that linked Kaliningrad to the motherland are more than steel, they are the lifelines of military strength and economic survival. Without them, Moscow faces an agonizing choice: pay billions to reroute supplies across the open sea or risk a strategic nightmare. Will Kaliningrad become an impregnable fortress or a ghost town? The absence of rail links doesn't just threaten logistics, it threatens the very psychological fabric of the region. Residents might feel trapped, cut off from home, their connection to Russia severed. Panic could ignite, destabilizing Moscow's control over this strategic enclave. As the Baltic states prepare their next move, they understand well, the stakes are higher than money. They are risking the entire security of the region, yet they are prepared to pay the cost. This isn't merely about infrastructure. It is a warning to Moscow: we no longer want your trade, your influence, or your presence. This bold dismantling echoes a profound message: the days of Russian dominance in Eastern Europe are dwindling. The Baltic blockade is a calculated response to Kremlin's hybrid warfare, cyber attacks, illegal border balloons, and covert sabotage. Now, the Kremlin faces a new reality. The significant weak point is exposed: the supposed invincibility of its outposts in Europe. With every steel beam removed, the walls of Moscow's influence crumble a little more. Is this the end of Russia's dream of controlling the region? Or is it just the beginning of an even darker chase for power, played out on a battlefield of steel and concrete? Remember, what's at risk is more than trucks or cargo, it's the complete reshaping of East-West relations. The move to cut off Kaliningrad isn't just a military decision. It's a masterstroke, an unanticipated blow that could change the balance of power forever. Are the Baltic states daring enough to finish the game, or are they unknowingly setting fire to their own stability? The answer may determine the future of Europe itself. In the previous discussion, the Baltic nations signaled their unwavering stance to Moscow by rejecting Russian funds, trains, and influence. They viewed the rail dismantling as a bold counter to Moscow's hybrid tactics, including Belarus-sent migrants, unlawful border balloons, and cyber incursions. The Balts shifted from defense to assertive denials. Imagine, for a split second, the echo of steel wheels grinding against ancient Soviet rails, the acrid metal scent of rust lingering in the chill Baltic air, the feel of cold tracks vibrating under boots as empires marched through. That's the ghostly pulse of history fading now. Will the Baltic's bold play shatter Russia's imperial echo, or awaken a vengeful giant trapped in isolation? Picture the irony: where rails once rolled in, they're now rolling out, teasing catastrophe. By pulling these tracks, the Baltics are flipping the hybrid warfare board. No more sly moves. No corridors. No ties. Just a yawning chasm. This isn't ripping out mere miles of iron. It's a drastic geopolitical blow. The Russian Empire and Soviets pushed power via trains. Rails tied military power, bureaucrats, and sway. Those 1520mm gauge paths in the Baltic stayed as imperial scars. While they endured, Russia's revival flickered like a buried ember. Resolutions from Riga, Tallinn, and Vilnius snuff Russia's grip on Europe forever. It's the Iron Curtain's flip. Walls fenced out the West back then. Now, tracks vanish to lock Russia in its gloom. Delve into the military edge, broader still. Today's battles hinge on supplies. Ukraine showed it: Russian lines falter off rail hubs. Refuelers mire in muck. Mobility crashes. Snapping border rails turns Russian advances into supply disasters from the jump. Tanks might crawl close, but feeders won't. A starved force? Just hunted prey. Dismantling railroads leaves Russia and Belarus mirroring this doom. Yet, will the Baltics dodge fallout by severing Russian lines? What's the swap for doomed rails? Rail Baltica emerges, an 870-kilometer spine, electric-powered, 1435mm European gauge, twin tracks of Liberty, hitting 249 kilometers per hour from Tallinn to Warsaw. This connects the Baltics firmly to Europe. So, what's next as tracks tumble? Will Kaliningrad vanish into fog, or will Moscow unleash unseen fury? The air thickens with isolation's stench. Feel the panic rise, a telephone's shrill ring in a darkened office, breaking the silence of lost dominance. What shocks await when the final spike falls? Hold breath, the void opens wide. The situation in Russia and Belarus would likely face chaos if their railway lines were entirely dismantled. Yet, the big question remains, if the Baltic states decide to remove Russia's and Belarus's tracks, will they find themselves unaffected? Is there an alternative ready to step in once these tracks are gone? The answer lies in a groundbreaking project that could reshape the entire region. Enter Rail Baltica, an 870-kilometer corridor of hope, fully electrified, built to modern European standards. Its gauge is 1,435 millimeters, with double tracks capable of reaching speeds up to 249 kilometers per hour. As construction edges forward from Tallinn to Warsaw, it's not just a transportation route, it's a geopolitical lifeline. While the ancient Russian lines stretch east-west toward Moscow, Rail Baltica runs north-south, slicing through the heart of Europe. This isn't merely about trains, it's about severing Russia's military and economic grip on the Baltics. Imagine NATO forces racing towards eastern borders, fast, efficient, and unstoppable, far beyond Moscow's sluggish rail system. This shift disrupts decades of strategic continuity. The Russian military relies heavily on railways. 90% of logistics, supplies, and troop movements depend on railway networks. Since Tsarist times, the gauges have been 1,520 millimeters, a deliberate barrier to European trains. Now, removing those ancient tracks from Baltic territory could cripple Russian and Belarusian operations. Russian wagons? They will be grounded, incompatible with the new tracks. No more wheel swaps at borders. A NATO armored unit arriving from the west could reach the Russian border hours faster, bypassing delays and vulnerabilities. The impact is profound and immediate. The Kremlin's plans for swift deployment into the region face a crushing obstacle. Rail Baltica not only connects cities, it strategizes the region's future. As Russian and Belarusian lines are erased, they will become relics of an aging empire. Meanwhile, the alliance's modern rail network accelerates, making old static borders irrelevant. The question arises, how will Russia and Belarus adapt when their lifelines are cut? Will they find alternative routes, or will this be their downfall? As the sound of steel on steel echoes across Europe, one thing is clear: this isn't just infrastructure, it's a seismic shift in power. Imagine a scene where cargo trains, once a symbol of power and empire, grind to a halt under the cold steel sky. The impact? Unimaginable. This is not just about moving goods, it's about cutting off a lifeline, sealing the fate of entire nations. The Baltic states are preparing to take a bold step, dismantling the rail links connecting Russia and Belarus to Europe. But what's the real purpose behind this move? Is it merely economic, or does it signal something far more explosive? Previously, the political scene seemed routine: elite leaders in suits gathered behind closed doors in Riga, exchanging smiles and diplomatic words. But behind those guarded walls, a fierce strategy was being forged. A plan to disable Moscow's reach into Europe. No, this isn't just about traffic or trade lines. It's a calculated blow aimed straight at Russia's imperial ambitions. Decades of Soviet-era infrastructure, designed to assert dominance, are now on the chopping block. The removal involves more than just steel rails, it's a wrecking ball striking the foundation of Russia's military and economic hopes. Cutting those tracks could transform Belarus into an economic ghost town: no more export of potash or petroleum through its ports. Trucks and roads would shoulder the burden, but their cost? Insurmountable. Factories would grind to a halt. The nation's economy, built on exports, could collapse in on itself. Do you realize how close Belarus is to chaos? And then there's Kaliningrad, a strategic outpost that exists in a fragile bubble. Isolated from the mainland with no rail access, this Russian enclave could become a ghost city. Dependent solely on costly sea and air transport. Each shipped container, each missile or soldier, would cost billions more and become vulnerable to NATO's watchful eyes. It's as if the region itself is being turned into a ticking time bomb. The entire military and logistical supply chain could be strangled, leaving Moscow's forces in an impossible bind. But what happens when a region like Kaliningrad is cut off from its motherland? Panic, perhaps a psychological siege that shakes the core of Russia's power. This isn't merely a strategic move, it's a declaration. The Baltic nations are flipping the geopolitical chessboard. The message? We no longer want your money, your trains, or your influence. They are turning the poles of Russia's empire into a void that promises no return. This is not just about railroads, it's about ending a 100-year-old imperial dream. It's a geopolitical chess move that redefines power, signaling that Russia's days of unchecked dominance are over. But the story doesn't end there. A brand new threat is emerging: railway constructs like Rail Baltica. An 870-kilometer, high-speed corridor running from Tallinn to Warsaw, poised to replace the old Soviet tracks. It connects Europe directly with the Baltics, an electrified, modern artery of hope and stability. Yet, as this fresh network begins to take shape, the question remains: is this enough to offset the irreversible damage done? Or is this the first step in a new era of isolation, where old powers are locked out, and new alliances are forged in silence? The outcome will shape the course of history. Are we witnessing the dawn of Europe's new security dawn, or the prelude to a storm of unprecedented scale? And in that storm, what shadows will linger? The echoes of rail ties being dismantled, the silence where trains once roared. The silence of a continent reclaiming its own sovereignty, or the quiet before a geopolitical earthquake that could reshape the world order forever? As the Baltic nations declare they will dismantle the ancient railway tracks, they are effectively sealing the future of Russia and Belarus to the west. Each rusted rail that is pulled up signifies a lost opportunity, an end to decades of imperial ambitions. The train has already departed, but this time, Russia is left behind, not on the train but beneath the broken tracks. Belarus, too, faces an uncertain, possibly grim fate. Its once vital connection to the outside world is crumbling. This move marks more than a simple logistical shift, it signals a profound geopolitical shift. The old empire's corridors are closing, the pathways to influence sealed shut. What does this mean for Moscow? Every meter of disassembled rail threatens to snatch away a fragment of its imperial dreams. No longer just about transportation, it's about control, influence, and power slipping through the cracks. The sound of metal being torn from the ground echoes a quiet but relentless decline of Russian reach in Europe. But this isn't just an act of regional strategy, it's a declaration. A bold statement that Europe no longer considers Russia part of the continent's future. This isn't about trade anymore, it's about sovereignty, independence, and resistance. The dismantling of these tracks is a firm message: Russia's era of dominance in the region is truly over. And yet, beneath this bold move lies a dark, uncertain horizon. Belarus could become isolated, a forgotten outpost at the end of a dead-end street. Kaliningrad could find itself a stranded vessel, adrift in the vast, stormy Baltic. The sound of the rusted rails being pulled away may very well be the prelude to a coming storm, a geopolitical upheaval that may reshape the entire Eurasian map. When those old iron links are finally gone, what is left? A shattered empire, a fragmented alliance, and a future where the old powers are forced into shadows. With the tracks removed, Russia's physical connection to Europe disappears. The story of dominance, control, and imperial ambition begins to fade into history. Every disassembled meter of rail is more than just steel, it's a symbol of the end of an era. The question remains: how will Moscow and Minsk respond to this new world order? Will they retreat into silence, or will this be the spark that ignites a new struggle for influence? The future is uncertain, and the map is being redrawn before our eyes. This revolution isn't just strategic, it's a megaphone echoing across continents. The steel rails are gone, but the repercussions will ripple for generations. What was once a symbol of empire is now a silent reminder of its collapse. The countdown has begun, the very foundation of control is crumbling. The train has left, and this time, Russia is no longer on board. It's left behind, buried beneath broken tracks, shattered remnants of a dream that once stretched across continents. Belarus stands at the brink of the same destiny, and the whole region braces for a new, unpredictable chapter. The final twist? This bold move might just be the beginning of a complete redefinition of Eurasia's power structure. The old world is slipping away, replaced by an uncertain, but fiercely independent future. The question is, are we witnessing the dawn of a new era or the quiet end of an empire? The answer lies beneath the broken tracks, and it's waiting to be uncovered.